Hi, folks. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Big River by Johnny Cash. This is one of my favorite country songs, one of my favorite songs about America, and one of my favorite songs generally. It's a song that seems very simple and straightforward, like most Johnny Cash songs, but reveals many layers once you start digging in there.
Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, and I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. And the tears that I cried for that woman are gonna flood you, Big River, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die. I met her accidentally.
It's also a song that I did not learn from the Johnny Cash version. I was first exposed to it from various covers by the Grateful Dead, and we'll talk a bit about the Grateful Dead and their place in Americana music in a bit.
I met her accidentally in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it tore me up every time I heard her drawl, southern drawl. Then I heard my dream went back downstream, cavorting in Davenport, and I followed you, Big River, when you called.
One thing you discover being a parent is that little kids love Johnny Cash. There's just something about the clarity and directness of his music that appeals to them, I guess. The fact that you can understand what he's saying, the fact that the arrangements are so kind of stripped down and minimal and have such a groove to them. And so, yeah, my kids just immediately liked Johnny Cash as soon as they heard him. When I played them Big River, my daughter was like, "Oh my God, Dad, this is the saddest song I've ever heard." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I always thought of it as kind of a fun, upbeat song. And she's like, "I taught the weeping willow how to cry. I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue." Like that's sad. And of course it's sad. On face value, it's extremely sad. But I never really heard it that way. And that seems like a strange contradiction. But then I was reading A Philosophy of Modern Song by Bob Dylan, in which he talks about Big River.
Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, and I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. But the tears I cried for that woman are gonna flood you, Big River, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die.
He's got some interesting insights into it. I'll read you some excerpts here. Well-meaning people can suffocate you with praise. Johnny Cash loves being the man in black and dresses accordingly, but the truth is, he is much more of a well-rounded artist and man. His best records are playful and full of wordplay and humor, miles from the august solemnity of the murder ballads, hardscrabble tales, and Trent Reznor covers that his fans came to expect. Songs like One Piece at a Time, Get Rhythm, and the chart topper Shel Silverstein wrote A Boy Named Sue.
Well, my daddy left home when I was 3, and he didn't leave much to Ma and me, just this old guitar and an empty bottle of booze. Now, I don't blame him 'cause he run and hid, but the meanest thing that he ever did was before he left, he went and named me Sue. Well, he must have thought that it was quite a joke, and it got a lot of laughs from lots of folks. Seems I had to fight my whole life through. Some gal would giggle and I'd get red, and some guy'd laugh and I'd bust his head. I'll tell you, life ain't easy for a boy named Sue.
Johnny Cash gets this song from Woody Guthrie's The Biggest Thing That Man Has Ever Done. Lines like, "I built the Rock of Ages, 'twas in the year of one. I'm the man that signed the contract to raise the rising sun. I was straw boss on the pyramids, the Tower of Babel too." He just takes off from there.
I worked in the Garden of Eden, it was a year of 2. Joined the Apple Pickers Union, I always paid my due. I'm the man that signed the contract to raise the rising sun. That was about the biggest thing that man had ever done. I was straw boss on the pyramids and the Tower of Babel too. Opened up the ocean, let the migrant children through. I fought 1,000,000 battles and I never lost a one. That was about the biggest thing that man had ever done.
Right, so Johnny Cash is exaggerating. He's kidding. And yeah, that's a sad sentiment, but he's being so over the top, right? Bob Dylan goes on to say, "The key element to this song is the chain gang thump of the acoustic rhythm guitar. You can't really cover this song properly leaving that behind. The released recording is maybe the biggest thing Johnny has ever done. The The song is built on the call and response guitar part played on an acoustic guitar. The guitars are doing this kind of chomping along with the beat. There's a shadow phrase and an echo phrase, like a chain gang thump, like somebody chopping a piece of wood. Okay, I don't literally know what all of that means, but I do take his point about the level of drive that this recording manages to get with no drummer. Yeah, because at this point, there is no drummer in the band. Like, all you're hearing is two guitars and a bass, and that's it.
All guitar and voice.
Okay, a final excerpt from Bob. If you get Johnny Cash's Essential Sun collection, you can hear a few versions before they came up with a final one. Some of the lyrics are different, and they don't have that call and response part together yet. It's a great example of how songs evolve in the studio. Johnny Cash is a gospel singer, or he thinks of himself as one. Somewhere along the line, he turns into Gargantua, Finn McCool, Jigger Jones, all in one. He could climb across rivers. He could lay track and take down greenhorns. He's a teller of tall tales, parts the clouds and drinks nitro. This is the real Johnny Cash, and Big River is his theme song. And Bob Dylan should know, right? Because Johnny Cash was his good friend, and they recorded together, and yeah, just were huge mutual fans.
Now won't you bat it down by Baton Rouge, River Queen, roll it on. Take that woman on down to New Orleans, New Orleans. Go on, I've had enough, dump my blues down in the Gulf. She loves you, Big River, more than me.
I'm not going to spend much more time with the lyrics to Big River, as delightful as they are. I will say it almost doesn't matter what they're about. For me, at least, this song is more about the sound and the rhythm of the words than their literal semantic meaning. And also, it's easy to lose sight of the importance of the melody in a song like this. Like, the melody seems very simple, but there's really a lot going on in the subtleties of it and the way that Johnny Cash inflects the pitches. So, yeah, let's dig in. We'll start by talking about the chords. The song, as recorded, is in F, although they are pretty clearly playing it in E, and then either there's capos on the guitars or they're just tuned up a half a step, because F is not an easy or natural key on the guitar, and the playing on this recording is very easy and natural. I'll be talking about the chords as they're recorded, but if you want to play the song, just take everything down a half a step. So the chorus goes F,
The weeping willow, how to cry.
A flat, F,
And I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky.
C,
And the tears
F,
that I cried for that woman are gonna
B flat,
flood you, Big River. And
F,
I'm gonna sit right
C,
here until I die.
F, A flat, F. So this is all pretty standard country music boilerplate, right? We got 1, we got 5 of 5 to 5 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1. But there is that F to A flat to F movement, that bluesy flat 3, that A flat chord. And that's something that's very guitaristic. I mean, if you're playing in E and you just lift all your fingers off the strings, you pretty much get a G chord. So it's something that a lot of guitarists discover pretty much by accident, even if you're not being intentional about it. But it's a very interesting bluesy sound, yeah, because if we're in the key of F, that A flat chord belongs more to the key of F minor. It's the 3 chord in the key of F minor. And that mixture of major and minor is one of the easiest ways to get the sound of the blues on a Western designed instrument like the guitar. Then under the guitar solos, the chords are different. They go like this. F, A flat, F, A flat, F, B flat, F, A flat, F, C, F, A flat, F. That's basically 12-bar blues in F. I mean, yeah, if you've got that A flat inserted in there into a bunch of the measures that would normally just be the 1 chord F, but otherwise, yeah, this is 12-bar blues in F. Okay, so that's the harmony. Now the melody is interesting because it mostly occupies this narrow range in between C, the first note, and F, the tonic. At the end of the chorus, Johnny Cash does go down from F, actually an entire octave down to the bottom F, but most of the melody is just in this range in between G and A. the second and third in F.
Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, and I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. And the tears that I cried for that woman are gonna flood you, big river, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die.
The exact pitches that he's singing in that range between G and A are complicated because sometimes he's clearly singing G and sometimes he's clearly singing A. Sometimes he's clearly singing A flat or G sharp, but a lot of the time he's just sort of sliding around in this zone in between those notes, right? And that's something that he gets from the blues, this idea of, okay, you don't have like a stable second or flat third or major third. You're just in this zone between the second and third, and the whole kind of continuum is up for grabs. Or you could do like a very sharp second that's kind of a minor third-ish second, or you could do a sharpened minor third that's kind of more minor-ish, or you could do a flattened major third that's more major-ish, yeah? So even though there's not a lot of distinct pitches in this melody in terms of like the piano keys or staff notation, there is this infinite universe of complexity in those fine gradations of pitch in between G and A. And yeah, this melody only seems simple until you try to learn it on the guitar or transcribe it in notation. And then you discover, yeah, it gets to be pretty intricate.
I met her accidentally in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it tore me up every time I heard her drawl, southern drawl. Then I heard my dream went back downstream, cavorting in Davenport, and I followed you, big river, when you called.
This guitar solo is an extraordinarily simple one. Da, da, ga, da, da, right? So all it is 5, kind of a minor-ish third and 1.
Oh, guitar, get going.
And that minor-ish third, again, that's like a blues note. It's also possible that the guy is playing it as G and bending it all the way up past A flat. I'm not actually sure. I mean, you could do it either way. But yeah, this very simple idea, but it does have that blues third in the middle of it. And then he's just transposing it so that it is like a B flat arpeggio, but with this minor-ish third. Yeah, simple idea, but it has this rich blues inflection to it that makes it a lot more interesting than if it was just like a regular old set of 5-3-1 arpeggios. And I love that the second guitar solo is literally identical to the first one. This is such a Johnny Cash-ism where like there's no improvisation happening here, right? That guitar solo was planned out. And it's reflective of the fact that these guys have some pretty severe limitations from a technical perspective. They just don't have a lot of different stuff they can do on their instruments. And so they very sensibly are like, well, let's just pick some things that we can do that sound good and just do them repeatedly. Yeah. There's something kind of wonderful about it. Like, I don't want there to be more notes in this solo. Like, I don't want there to be more variety to the arrangement. It just is like so perfect the way it is. It's very different from the way that I would go about making music. Like, I would be looking for more ways to decorate and vary, but Johnny Cash is much better at country music than me, clearly. Like I said, my first exposure to this song was not Johnny Cash. It was the Grateful Dead. They included it on a couple of their live albums. They put it on Steal Your Face, which is by a wide margin the worst officially released Grateful Dead album. But then they put it on One from the Vault, which was their first live concert recording to be officially released. And the One from the Vault version is better, so that's the one I'm going to be talking about.
I told that weeping willow how to cry, cry, cry. Want the clouds and the cover of a clear blue sky. Please cry for that woman. I'm gonna flood you, big river. I'm gonna sit right here till I die. Well, I met her accidentally in St. Paul, Minnesota. Drove me off every time out her draw. That's all
The Dead do it quite differently from Johnny Cash. First of all, they do it a lot faster. They do it in a different key. They do it in A rather than F. They sing the chorus in harmony-ish. I mean, technically it's harmony between Bobby and Jerry. Bobby and Jerry are not very strong harmony singers, and I wouldn't say they sing this melody extremely well, but they definitely have a lot of enthusiasm. There is something kind of fun about Bobby spitting out all these lyrics at this fast tempo. But so the main excitement in this recording, as in all Grateful Dead recordings, is Jerry's guitar solos. And Jerry just absolutely shreds on this song. It's not a virtuoso technical performance. I mean, Jerry has good chops as rock players go. And, this is certainly a lot of notes going by pretty quickly. But the thing that really makes it work for me is not flashiness. It's how musical and melodic the whole thing is, even at tempo. Yeah. It seems like he's just digga 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 digga, right? Just throwing out this continuous stream of 16th notes. But first of all, it's not continuous, right? He does break up the flow pretty regularly. And something that I like about Jerry more than most rock lead guitarists is that Jerry's style is pretty vocalistic. Like, he sounds like he's singing. There are these distinct kind of phrases, these sentences and paragraphs. He pauses to breathe once in a while. And technically, guitarists don't have to breathe, in their playing, but it's good if they do because it just gives the line some like shape instead of it just being this endless stream of notes. And Jerry's note choices are pretty interesting. In this first solo, the basic idea here is just A minor pentatonic. The least interesting thing that you could possibly play over a rock or a country song in A. But Jerry is really creative about approaching these notes in the minor pentatonic chromatically and surrounding them and closing them with chromatic notes. He's very expressive with his bends, with his articulations, with his slides. As the solo goes on, he starts bringing in the major third more, both as a discrete note and by bending up to it. And so, yeah, you get this kind of major-minor tension in his solo that is really essential to the bluesy quality of the song. So you have this very kind of Western European, bright, colorful, major key harmony underneath, but Jerry is calling back to the bluesiness of the vocal melody with these very bluesy note choices in his soloing. I guess if you wanted to be simplistic, you could think of this pitch collection that he's using as A minor pentatonic plus the major third. But the pitch collection doesn't really get at what he's doing because there are so many bends, right? There's so many microtonal inflections. I think it's interesting the way Jerry approaches the B chord. He does touch that D sharp, which is the third of the B chord, and he manages to weave it into the line such that it sounds more like the sharp fourth from the blues and less like he's arpeggiating through the changes. But yeah, it is really nice how he manages to work that in there to let you know, oh yes, I am aware that this is a non-diatonic chord. This is a secondary dominant, but I'm not going to break up the flow. I'm just going to find a way to flow through that chord as organically as if I was just playing the blues and not worrying about the chords at all. Jerry, you could criticize him for not being an extremely harmonically adventurous player. He does play interesting dissonant notes once in a while, but I feel like most of his interest is melodic and in his phrasing rather than his note choices. He pretty much either plays pentatonics or blues or chord tones. Sometimes he gets into the modes, into Mixolydian, especially in Dorian. But you never really get the feeling that he's just playing scales. He's always playing melodies. Like he's always choosing these notes so as to create these puzzle pieces that fit together. And, I see a lot of well-intentioned guitar tutorials out there on playing like him that are like, oh, you got to know your modes and you got to know your arpeggios. And that's true. But what you really have to be able to do is connect up the main notes chromatically and with bends, right? You got to build these melody lines that have folkloric integrity. And Jerry memorized hundreds and hundreds of melodies, yeah. Early on in his musical life, he was playing all these folk songs and old blues songs, country songs, ragtime, this jug band stuff. And you can really hear that vast store of memorized melodies in his improvisation. It just feels like there are songs under there and not just arbitrary patterns. As for the rest of the Dead, they're a bunch of very creative players, although I would say that their reach exceeds their grasp. It's exciting as this performance builds up steam, but it also gets a little cluttered and chaotic for my tastes. I do find myself wishing for that stripped back, bare minimalism of Johnny Cash's version where, yeah, they're not doing anything that's super interesting, but everything they do sounds intentional and good. And with the Dead, as the excitement builds, everybody's just kind of filling all of the possible space with notes. And yeah, that can be fun, but it just gets to be a little cluttered. If you're in the right frame of mind, you can enjoy them, but if you're sort of sitting, listening with your complete attention alone in your room, and there's not a big concert venue full of dancing people, they can get on your nerves a little bit, yeah. I think it's significant that I learned this song from the Grateful Dead and only much later sought out the original Johnny Cash recording, because that's true of a lot of this kind of classic Americana. The Grateful Dead had this enormous repertoire. I mean, they had tons and tons and tons of original songs, but they also had this huge catalog of songs they would do spanning every kind of American vernacular music. So folk, blues, country, ragtime, a little bit of jazz. Johnny Cash is just one of the many classic country, blues, folk, and R&B artists who I got exposed to through the Grateful Dead. One of the things that is the most fun about engaging with their music is the repertoire is so enormous and it covers such a wide range of this weird, groovy, old-timey American music. In addition to exposing me to Johnny Cash, the Grateful Dead exposed me to Elizabeth Cotten, Howlin' Wolf, Noah Lewis, Otis Redding, Bill Monroe, John Coltrane, both through the songs that they covered and the people who they talked about in interviews, especially Jerry. And it's not that they necessarily play all this music extremely well. You can hear the Coltrane influence on Jerry, but Jerry is not a Coltrane level player. You can hear the influence of Miles Davis's electric, In a Silent Way and Bitches Brew era, but the Dead do not play like Miles Davis's band. They definitely don't play blues as well as Lightnin' Hopkins. They don't play R&B as well as Bobby Blue Bland. They definitely don't play country as well as Johnny Cash or Marty Robbins or Merle Haggard or any of the other people that they're covering. But they do all of this stuff together. It's in the same shows. It's on the same albums. And so, yeah, if you're a teenager in New York City in the 80s and there's no YouTube and there's no Spotify, there's no way to easily just peruse through all these things, a Grateful Dead album like One from the Vault or Reckoning or, any of their live albums where they're doing this huge variety of material, yeah, it's just a guided tour through the history of American popular and vernacular music and incredibly valuable for that reason. I know plenty of people who despise them and who think that they're sloppy and self-indulgent, and I've felt that way about them too. Interestingly, Bob Dylan himself is like the world's biggest Deadhead. I mean, he was friends with them and he toured with them and really thought the world of them. There's a chapter about Truckin in Philosophy of Modern Song.
Arrows of neon and flashing marquees out on Main Street. Chicago, New York, Detroit, and it's all on the same street. A typical city involved in a typical daydream. Hang it up and see what tomorrow brings. Dallas got a soft machine. Houston, too close to New Orleans. New York got the ways and means and just won't let you be.
I want to read you a couple of things that he says about the Dead. The Grateful Dead are not your usual rock and roll band. They're essentially a dance band. They have more in common with Artie Shaw and bebop than they do with the Byrds or the Stones. Whirling dervish dancers are as much a part of their music as anything else. Yeah, I think that that's true. When they're playing Big River, it's just part of like a show for you to dance to. And, I did go to some of those shows towards the tail end of their career. And yeah, they were a lot of fun. And, even if the singing was real raggedy and some of the playing was very sloppy, these shows did tend to be greater than the sum of their parts because when you're dancing, the overall groove and atmosphere matters more than the precise execution of all the ideas. Yeah. Bob Dylan goes on to praise individual members of the Dead. And then he says, when you go to a Dead concert, you are right there in Pirate Alley on the Barbary Coast, right there by the San Francisco Bay. At any time, you could drop through a trapdoor into a rowboat and be shanghaied to China and not even know it. So yeah, there's this sense of America as this land of danger and intrigue. And both in their original songs like Truckin' and in their choices of covers like Big River, you have all these place names that they don't just sound like depressing strip malls with gas stations and highways. They sound like places where you could have these like sleazy adventures. And yeah, that is a much more appealing vision of America than my experience of the reality of it. That romantic picture describes an aspect of reality as well. Bob Dylan says of Truckin', arrows of neon, flashing marquees, Dallas in a soft machine, Sweet Jane, Vitamin C, Bourbon Street, bowling pins, hotel windows, and the classic line, what a long strange trip it's been. A thought that anybody can relate to. Cars that ain't worth a dime, all in the same town, but you're moving anyway. The lyrics just pile up on top of each other, but the meaning is understandable and clear. The song also changes pace and changes back, and the chorus has got that triple harmony again. Truckin', it conjures up something different from traveling. It's arduous, but the Dead are a swinging dance band, so it doesn't seem like hard work to go with them. And then Bob says, the guy singing the song acts and talks like who he is, and not the way others would want him to talk and act. And yeah, what a concept, right? Like, isn't it nice to be able to just act and talk like who you are and not the way others want you to talk and act? I mean, in life, I feel like you are frequently called upon to not talk and act the way you would naturally talk and act. And yeah, something that Bob Dylan, the Grateful Dead, and Johnny Cash have in common is you do get the sense of like what you're hearing is what you get. It doesn't sound like there's much artifice to them at all, right? That why would you sing like that if that's not how you naturally sang? Yeah. And I think that Johnny Cash is a hugely better singer than anybody in the Grateful Dead and probably a better singer than Bob Dylan. But yeah, they do have in common this thing of just singing how they sing. And you couldn't really expect Johnny Cash to sing an operatic aria, but there is nobody who sings a Johnny Cash song better than Johnny Cash. And since he is the best at being Johnny Cash, it seems silly to evaluate him on his ability to sing like somebody other than Johnny Cash. You know what I mean? When I teach songwriting or improvisation, these more creative modes of music making, I feel like that's like the most profound thing that I have tried to learn in my own creative life and that I'm trying to impart to students is that if you're trying to sound like a particular thing, you might be able to do it technically, you might not, but if you're just trying to sound like you, then you're just going to be successful anytime you open your mouth or anytime you put your fingers on the instrument. Yeah. And so if you have limitations, then you just find a way to sound good within those limitations, right? If you're Johnny Cash and you only know a couple of chords on the guitar, then you really find a way to make those chords have a groove to them. Yeah. If you can only sing like this narrow range of notes, if you only have this one kind of affect, then you want to find material that really brings out the best from that specific style and sound that you have. Yeah, I just find that really inspiring. And yeah, it's fun to hear place names rattled off the way Johnny Cash rattles them off. And it's exciting to like go out into the world and see the names of these places and be like, oh, snap, Davenport, like in the Johnny Cash song, right? That he elevates them and makes them romantic and exciting just by virtue of putting them in his songs, by setting them to these grooves and melodies. And that is a pretty neat trick also. So yeah, Big River by Johnny Cash. an adventure to even listen to, an adventure to sing, and doesn't sound like a particularly wonderful relationship with this woman who he's singing about, but he manages to transform like the pain of the story into an enormously pleasurable listening experience. And that is a pretty cool thing. Thank you very much for listening.
Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, and I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. And the tears that I cried for that woman are gonna flood you, big river, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die. I met her accidentally in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it tore me up every time I heard her drawl, southern drawl. Then I heard my dream went back downstream to Morton and Davenport.